Welcome to the Brave Healing Podcast. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time. And we are here to celebrate another amazing book today, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools to Achieve Anything, is due to hit Amazon in June, you guys. And I have three of the amazing authors of this book with me here today. Welcome, Courtney Marcassani, Susan Cross, and Rochelle Marie Lawson. Hey, ladies.
Good morning. Hey. Hello, hello.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you guys here. Okay, you guys, get ready. So Courtney Marcassani is the CEO of Inspired Potentials. She's an author, health and wellness coach, and consciousness researcher who navigates the boundaries of human perception. Best-selling author and speaker Susan Cross is a passionate advocate of connecting with nature to reduce stress and anxiety and improve mood. And Rochelle Marie Lawson, known as the Queen of Feeling Helpless, is a dream lifestyle creation expert. Wait a minute, what? All right, you guys, we're going to hear more from her in a minute, so we can get that. We can get that figured out. I think it's not helpless, but I don't know. Yeah. So what is it, Rochelle?
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Okay. I knew I'm reading that word going, it's not helpless, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it's typed here. You guys, before we begin, I want to say a special thank you to Anna Pereira, the founder of the Wellness Universe, without whom we would not be here today. Anna had a huge vision for this book and all of the books in our series. And I'm so grateful to her for everything she does for wellness practitioners around the world. We love you, Anna. Thank you for this. So, Courtney, you are first up. Talk to us about the beautiful chapter that you wrote for this book.
Well, I want to also give a nod to Anna because she's a tireless advocate and she has put out her heart and soul, and I feel very grateful to be part of this process and part of this best-selling series. It's wonderful. The chapter that I wrote is the Woo Formula, and this is something that I discovered after I had a profound personal experience. It was very transformative. I prevented a fire in a 3-story apartment building in Seattle, Washington. I never really told the story. And so I took this moment to write something really special for the Achieve Anything book, because after 20 years of researching this topic and trying to understand the intuitive process that I experienced at the time, which was basically following my gut and probably saving some lives, I wanted to share my own personal story and my journey, and also share with the readership of this book how it all unfolded, the research that I did, how I uncovered it, and really share the tips moving forward of what can work for you following your intuition. And the 3 simple steps, I break it down.
Courtney, the story about the fire was amazing and scary and like amazing. So I want you to talk more
Very amazing.
Talk a little bit more about that intuitive hit that you had. And I mean, your average person may have just ignored it and been like, oh, what is that? Tell me more about that.
I experienced it as an inner voice. That's the best way I can describe it. I was working as a social worker and a counselor at a major trauma center in the Pacific Northwest. I was on my day off, and one of my girlfriends called and asked if I could help move a bed because I had a truck. And if you have a truck in the city, everybody calls to ask you to move. So that wasn't, unknown territory. And I was like, certainly, I'll help out. But as I went to pick up my friend, I never went into her apartment. I picked her up and her 2 boys on the corner. I started to hear a voice, don't move the bed. And I passed it off as anxiety at first, and it was odd. But as I started to drive across Seattle to where we were going to pick up the bed, the voice got louder and louder and louder, and I started to feel a visceral response, almost like an unease or a sickness. And so I continued to listen to it, and I said to my friend, I think we should not move the bed and we should go back to your apartment. Well, after a lot of iterations of passing this back and forth, we had the bed totally put apart, ready to get loaded up in the truck, and I said, we need to go back. And the two girlfriends that were with me at the time were like, okay, well, we drove all the way back to the other side of Seattle. When we got there, there was a light smoke that had filled the whole second floor of the apartment. And as we went in, we found a 3-wick candle burning. But it wasn't just that the candle was left burning, there was a bamboo light shade over the top of it that was black and smoking, and it was ready to ignite. And so, because that perception altered my reality in a sense, I didn't know what was happening at the time. I just couldn't let it go. I had to keep searching and trying to discover what it was. So, it was an inner voice, and that led me to be able to track that down through research, through documenting my own experience, but I never really told that story to anyone. So I took this moment to share it with the Achieve Anything book because I thought it would help people understand the profound effects of intuition.
There's this gets talked about a lot in terms of you're driving down the highway and you get the notice to just exit now versus keep going, right? And who knows, right? You may hear later about the accident that you would have run into, or you would have, right? But when it comes to this kind of stuff, I don't know that everyone is always listening or knows how to listen. Would you just spend a minute talking about the tool that you're sharing?
Yeah, I talk about very simply the 3 steps, which is to pay attention and pay heed to those different signs along the way, and everybody experiences them differently. So that's the first thing to address. How do you perceive sensory information? Some people hear, some people get a flash, some people have a visceral response. So that's the first step. Pay heed and pay attention. And then the second step is to learn about it. That was my work. For the last 20 years, I just wanted to learn more and more about it. And then the third is to use that gift, tap into it, whatever it is. And I describe a little bit about the gifts, the intuitive gifts, and then to use it to achieve. So following the breadcrumbs along the way is what I have found. And it's synchronicities, it's signs, it's the people you're drawn to, and having faith in yourself. Those are the 3 simple steps.
Thank you, Courtney. And let me say thank you to all 3 of you for stepping up in that way that, you had to take on the challenge of crafting a tool in writing that the reader could follow and have a practical experience with. And that is a challenge. And we're all used to working with people and teaching every day, but writing it down so that they could get that experience and learn something new and take their journey to the next level. I really want to tell you all 3 today and all of the authors how grateful I am to you that you said yes and that you took it on and that you shared your beautiful, authentic, sometimes for the first time, stories. This book is incredible. So Susan, I'm moving to you next. Tell me about this amazing chapter that you wrote.
I wrote chapter 14, which is Nature's Recipe for Restoration, How to Cultivate the Authentic You. It's a little bit different because I am a nature conservationist. And as you said in the intro, I'm a passionate advocate for the healing powers of nature. There are a lot of formal programs, forest bathing, earthing, earth grounding, all kinds of things. I learned my best lessons about nature through the restoration of the property that my husband and I live in outside of Toledo, Ohio. It's a rare habitat. It's as rare as the Everglades in Florida and the temperate rainforests of Washington State, the redwood forests, and only 1% of it remains undeveloped, most of that in the hands of private landowners like me. And we felt like our property was calling out to us to restore it to its native state, get rid of the invasives and let what's actually supposed to be here thrive. And that's exactly what we did. And so we've restored 20 acres of property to its natural state in the Oak Openings region, which is where I live. And the lessons that we've learned about resilience, using nature as a guide, owning your own life and being brave enough to celebrate what's great about you came straight from our experience at watching these natural native plants that were stuck in the ground and didn't have a chance to grow and thrive come forward, and the results that come after that.
So you did something really interesting, actually, in the writing of your chapter this time. Talk to me about that a little bit.
I did. Thank you for saying something about that. I actually took one plant. It's called a large world pogonia. It's very small. It's actually only probably gets to be ground to top about this high. So it's very small. But it is a member of the orchid family. It is incredibly rare in our area. It is less rare in other parts of the world. But it had never before been documented in the county where I live in Northwest Ohio. And when my husband, John, who really was the brains behind all of the restoration effort, I need to give credit where credit's due. These thumbs are black. I support on the back end with everything. But as he was getting rid of all the invasives, about a couple of years into it, he spotted this pogonia, looked it up, did some research to figure out what it is. And now we have patches of them that grow every year. So for my chapter, I started it out with a parable and essentially made the pogonia a person, created the pogonia as a person and its experience thriving here in our environment when it was in its native state, ahead of man and the world creeping in and creating destruction and disruption that prevented it from growing. What happened when it had to hide underground for a few years, many years, actually decades before it could come back up. And I start with that because I want people to really understand not only the experience of the plant, but that the experience of this beautiful, tiny little flower that was long forgotten in our area is actually a metaphor for the experience of each of us. And I wanted that to serve as an inspiration as folks are, readers are looking at how they can achieve something.
I loved that piece so much, especially how sometimes you have to go underground for a while to then blossom into your fullest self. The healing there, the idea of the healing really spoke to me a lot.
Thank you. I have to say, I have to add one other thing to that. Just you triggered that for me, Laura. The other piece of this is that the begonia never lost its innate DNA that said you can thrive. And I believe that even when we're at our lowest, we still have that within us as well. I've experienced that firsthand. And it's that piece that triggers the achieve anything. And I talk about that in my chapter.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, you guys, these chapters. Thank you, Susan. Rochelle Marie, tell me about your amazing chapter.
My chapter is chapter number 23, and it's called Your Dream Life, using energetic vibes to orgasmically manifest success. And that's what I've done all my life. Well, not all my life, but that's what I've done quite a bit of my adult life. I'm a business owner, multi-business owner, but how it came about, the whole energetic realm was kind of interesting. When we're on our journey, as I say, if we're on our journey, traveling down our path to bliss, things come up upon our path that we don't always understand or realize or even, sync with at that moment in time. But there's always a message, there's always wisdom, and there's always information being given to us that we can utilize on our journey to help our journey be a lot less challenging and a lot more successful. So, of course, I'm the queen of feeling fabulous. I'm being real subdued because I don't want to scare you guys, but I'm really wild, sassy, sexy, all of that. I'm the bad girl in the bunch, so to speak, probably. But my energy comes from, I'm the only girl in my whole Italian, Sicilian, Black family. I'm the only granddaughter. So I've been always surrounded by a lot of boy energy. And I had to really learn how to hone in to my own energy. And you mentioned something, Laura, earlier about how we kind of step into doing stuff that we believe we're supposed to do, but we get down our path a little bit and we realize that we're doing stuff that other people want us to do, and we've embraced it. We've wore it as like, I've got the shirt on, we wear it like it's our badge of courage. But really, we want to really just be butt naked and wear our own and do our own thing. And so how it came about with this, me learning about energetic vibrations, I'm a registered nurse, electrical engineer, was just by fate. I think I picked up the newspaper many 3+ decades ago, and was preparing to go for a meeting during my regular day. And there was this article in the San Jose Mercury about energetic vibrations or energetic energy. And I picked it up because it was interesting to start reading it, and had an epiphany that led me on to a journey that I've had tremendous success in utilizing this information and this energy. And so it is my gift. It's my honor to share my wisdom with those that don't realize all the tools that we have available to us that are invisible, so to speak, but will definitely help us step into being successful no matter what it is that we want to do or achieve.
All right, so many of us understand manifesting, and we love to think about how to use our minds to do that, but you added orgasmically manifest. So like, I need you to talk about that piece. Like, you just took it to a whole nother level.
Okay, so, everyone watching, when you are in that moment of having that amazing orgasm, that energy is so powerful. Here's the thing, having an orgasm is what has us all here today. Orgasmic energy has the power to create life. Thus, that's why we're here. So when you think back of that time, or the last time you had an orgasm, it just puts your whole body in your whole mindset, your whole body in a whole different realm of things. You might be kind of down in the dumps. You think about that last time you had an orgasm, and then all of a sudden your energy, your livelihood, your vibrancy is lifted up. And so this is the beautiful thing. We can tap into that orgasmic energy, the power to create life, to create whatever it is that we desire in life. When they talk about the law of attraction, there's so many things that movie The Secret left out. And one of it was being energetically aligned with what you want to accomplish or what you desire to have in your life. And so when you tap into your orgasmic energy, it opens up an awareness and spaces in your body, mind, spirit that you may have discounted, that you may have thought is not possible, but it becomes possible. And that energy is something that we can tap into at any moment, any part of our day. When you learn how to do it, when you know how to do it, it becomes amazing. Orgasmic is just sexy, sassy, but it is real energy. And like I said, it has the power to create life. And anybody watching me talk about orgasmic energy right now, hearing those words is just, I'm sure, putting a smile on their face or taking their mind to some sassy, sexy thoughts.
Oh, that's awesome. It is powerful energy. Okay, I'm going to stick with you for this question that I'm going to come around to all of you with. And you just touched on it a second ago, but let's go a little bit deeper. So I believe that one of the first steps to achieving what we want is actually knowing what we want. And I've talked to a lot of people who woke up somewhere along the line and realized they'd been living everybody else's dreams and not truly in touch with their own. So talk to me about how that played out in your personal journey.
So how that played out in my personal journey is, okay, I'm the only girl in a whole entire family of boys, so I'm surrounded by boy energy. And I was always, as a girl, you would think that it wouldn't have happened this way, but as the only girl in the family, I was always compared to the boys, always. And so I just had this notion of I have to be as successful or more successful than the boys so that I could just get the kudos that I wanted, I deserved as a girl, right? And I was beginning to absorb a lot of energy from other people in my family. I was really good. I always wanted to be a nurse, but somehow when I got to high school, because I was such a really good student, someone said you should go into broadcast journaling, or you should, do engineering. Or so I just got dismayed and thought, okay, nursing got kind of kicked down to the curb, and I started embracing all this other energy. So of course, my first degree from San Diego State was in communications. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I wanted to be Connie Chung. Wasn't a reality because it was only Connie Chung at that time, right? And then I went back to school, got an electrical engineering degree because someone back in my day, oh, you're so good with numbers and blah, 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 blah. You should go into engineering. Again, electrical engineering degree in the 80s as a female in Silicon Valley, but I could not get a job as an engineer. And so I started realizing that, maybe some of the stuff that I took on was really not me. I was taking on the dream of other people and being successful with, going through the process. But it wasn't my dream. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. And once I realized that, I became, I'm going to say, this little badass chick, and I embraced what I wanted to do and had to really confront those that were putting their dreams upon me and say, that's your dream. Sorry, you didn't do it, but this is what I'm going to do. And I always was the one that, didn't walk the toe. I was always the one getting in trouble because I just knew that there was more to me than what I was doing. And, part of that was just becoming the badass nurse that I am. And so that's kind of how it happened. But the thing about that is when you decide to take on your own journey and shed the coats of all those other people, sometimes you can get some upheaval from those other people because you're no longer wearing their badge of courage. You've stepped into owning and wearing your own badge of courage. And so you just have to sit with it, tap into your energetic vibes, and know that what you're doing is what you're meant to be doing.
I often think that if you're not ruffling some feathers, you're probably not doing it right. Like you're probably not really going for it. And I've had those experiences. I appreciate you bringing that piece up. Of course, that might be what scares some people from going for it because they're afraid they're going to lose everybody that matters to them because you do get reactions from people.
Oh, I mean, I had some fears like, what are you doing? And you went to school and I'm like, yeah, but it's my life. First of all, I paid for my own colleges, my college degrees. And I'm living my own life, and I could no longer wear those coats or badges of courage for other people. I could not, they became too heavy. The pins in my coat, so to speak, began sticking me in my skin versus just sitting on there, my coat looking pretty. And I didn't want to do that. I just didn't, it didn't resonate with me. And the other part with regards to that I share in my chapter in the book is because of that, for 17 years, I suffered with the medical condition that could not be diagnosed because I was so busy wearing other people's coats and other people's badges of courage just to be, just to get some good graces, that it was leading me on a journey to sickness, not wellness. And it was amazing what happened when I began to shed those coats and those other badges of courage that weren't mine.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay. I can't wait to share these chapters with you, and wait until you also understand that not only you're hearing bits of their stories today, but you're about to be taught some powerful tools, the tools that these authors use today to get them to where they are. This is such a powerful book. Courtney, how about you in that same question? So living everyone else's dreams, not really in touch with your own. How did that play out in your personal journey at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the synchronicities here with Rochelle and Susan both are always shocking to me. It surprises me how when people come together of like mind, you hear the similarities in the journeys. So I was also a tomboy. And that was the one thing that you led with that just, it's just so profound to hear somebody who has a similar journey. And when I talk about 3 simple steps, I preface it and overarch it in sensitivity, because that's kind of my wheelhouse. I think everybody is sensitive, but I didn't realize how sensitive I really was. So by the time I got to the fire, it felt like an awakening, but I feel like I probably suppressed all of it, all that ability, all that in tune nature, being with nature. And Susan, I grew up in nature. I lived practically in the woods when I grew up, the woods, the 5-acre plot behind my house. And I was a child and very imaginative and thought I was actually talking to the birch trees and the nettles. And for me, it was my total creative imagination, and even had imaginary friends. And my parents just let it be. They didn't think anything weird was going on. I said, my friend is coming over for dinner, and my mom would put a plate on the table. So I was allowed on that level to be completely creative. So one of the things that occurred to me when you guys were talking is that creative element. The creative element is within us, and it's within all of nature, and we live within it. And so I think one of the keys and touchstones to all of what we're talking about is the creative ability inside of us. And you hear people say, oh, I'm not creative. I think it's just natural. And so I do believe that we're led in our life to these moments where we see something so clearly and we know it's us. We can tune into it. It's being expressed through us. And I believe that's the creative spirit. So if you can get in touch with your creative spirit, you can create anything because you're excited about it. That energy lifts, you're in tune. But I feel like that story that Rochelle just told was very similar to my own. So I'm not going to go into my history because she just encapsulated all of it. Very same. And so I think the twist that I can put on that is that we don't necessarily know who we are when all these patterns and structures are put on us when we're little. And so it's going through the discovery process in our own journey. And the part that I find so spirit lifting, and that's why I'm Inspired Potentials, is I believe everybody does have a destiny. I didn't think that. I used to be an atheist. But the way things came to me in my own perception, they were repetitive. They kept coming. They felt like signposts, and I was led to them. And then I couldn't really let go of them. And that whole path seemed to me like a trajectory that I needed to follow, even though it made no sense to anybody else. I was working as a clinical social worker. I started talking about intuition with the other social workers, and they kind of put me at arm's length and said, that sounds a little bit like mental illness. Because I was talking about hearing voices and following the gut instincts, and they're like, that's like thought projection. And so in psychiatry, the things that I was discussing were totally, I could almost describe myself as persona non grata, because I felt I needed to express this. I needed to create something around it because that experience was so profound and lifted me up in a way that I felt led back to that apartment building. So I knew there was something going on, and I just followed the breadcrumbs, and I couldn't let it go. So I feel like that was my heart singing out to me to follow it, and I did. That was courage. So I think the other thing you have to have is the courage to be yourself, regardless of the environment and what people are saying to you about who you really are. Find out who you really are and then follow the breadcrumbs. And I think that if you have creative elements within that, you'll always be successful because you're being who you are, who you truly are.
Yes, brave healer. My goodness, there it is.
Right? It's the courage. It's the courage to follow it despite the voices. It's the courage to keep going on that path, knowing that you don't know what the answer is or what the outcome is. That's my mom behind me. But you do it anyway. You do it anyway. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Did she say hi? So that's my piece that I picked up from the thread that we're talking about and how similar it is. And I feel like even this, just this podcast and listening to the stories, and when you start listening to other people's stories, it does give you faith to keep going, even though you don't know the answer. Follow your courage, follow your heart, follow your creative instincts. And it's like nature. The true path will unfold.
No
it sounds
doubt.
woo. It sounds woo, but that's why I wrote the chapter, because woo works if you follow it and if you listen to your heart, and it does save lives. That was the other part about the story that you found was kind of scary. It is life-saving. The way that I look at it in terms of the book and the chapter that I wrote is it will save your life. If you listen to your inner guidance, it will show you who you are and save your own life. So that's the twist on what we're talking about.
Yeah,
that's what I believe.
Very, very powerful. Thank you, Courtney.
Sure.
Susan, how about you? Talk to me about this a little bit in terms of your own journey.
All of this ties together that we're all saying. I'm hearing some common threads. So I'll add a couple things about my journey that extend the story a little bit further. It's a funny thing about the universe. Call it God, call it the universe, whatever higher energy source you believe in. when you don't pay attention to it, it keeps trying to get your attention until it finally succeeds. And that's exactly what happened with me. For me, the idea of achievement, the word achievement is actually a very seductive word because most of my life suggested that I needed to check things off a list, move on to the next part of the checklist that would prove that I mattered, that I had value, that I was contributing in a meaningful way to the world. Interestingly enough, it took a show-stopping moment in 2017 when I had a medical emergency and I almost died while I was on vacation in the Caribbean. I had to have immediate life-saving surgery. My appendix had ruptured. And at that point, when I'm getting wheeled into the operating room in a foreign country with no idea at that point how close to death I literally was within hours, I had to just stop trying to control everything and achieve the checklist. And I had to surrender to my circumstances and just let everything be. Spoiler alert, I'm still here. It all worked out great. But really, this is when I learned about the nature RX, or the nature prescription, because we were already restoring our property before I had my medical emergency. I came back a mess. It took me a week to recover enough to fly home, and then it took me several months to recover here in at my house. And I had to retreat from the world here in the woods. I had to have quiet. I experienced, for those of you in the medical profession, I experienced all of the startle reflexes. I had brain fog. I physically, because I was so close to death and illness, physically, I had a lot of recovery that I needed to do. I could barely walk. And I'm a person who hikes and bikes miles at a time and for days at a time. And I could barely put one foot in front of the other to get up and down my driveway. But what I learned as I was here in the woods and just listening to nature wrap me up in its embrace, and the sounds of nature, birds, wind whistling through the trees, even a rainstorm or a snowstorm, all of which happened during my recovery period. What my biggest takeaway was that nature already knew how to be resilient. And I needed to only look as far as outside my window for a model of how to just be present and be part of the world that I was supposed to be in. And that was really my epiphany period. It took me a little bit of time after that to really understand. And in my chapter, I talk about really the 5 steps, the 5 key pieces of nature's recipe for restoration, which I mentioned is the chapter. You've touched, ladies, on some of those, the idea of welcoming disruption and making sure that you get rid of invasives that are in your life, the idea of be brave enough to own what you love about yourself. All of those things we can learn from nature. So when we can't find those within ourselves, as I couldn't during that time, and certainly because of the way I was thinking about life ahead of my own health crisis, by looking outside, even today, I'm reminded every day when I'm having those moments of question, or I'm just frustrated, I'm just done. I want to default to my old checklist mentality of approaching life. I look outside, I see baby birds who are flying out of a nest for the first time, or I see flowers that are coming up that we haven't seen for a while, or we find some wild turkey eggs. And that reminds me that it triggers my awareness, and it reminds me that I am enough. It reminds me that I have within me to do what I need to do by following a model that I have a chance to see every day.
Wild turkey eggs. Yes. I love nature is absolutely the most powerful connection for me in terms of my words, actually. So journaling, my poems, my writing, like all it takes is a step into the woods, and I better have a notebook because those inspirations are moving through me. I love listening to you talk about all of that.
You know, the beauty of it is, Laura, I'll add one small thing. The beauty of it is you do not have to live in the woods. You don't have to have access to the 20 acres that I have access to that we've restored. You can look at nature images on your phone. You can listen to the Calm app or other sound app that has waves crashing on a beach, or the sound of rain, or birds chirping. There are so many ways to engage with nature that take our blood pressure down, that bring a smile because we remember something fond in our lives that's attached to that sound. We can smell fresh flowers. There are so many ways to engage that even if you live in the city in the middle of a lot of concrete, I guarantee you can still engage with nature and take something away from it that'll make you smile.
Yes, great point. All right, ladies, I'm sticking with Susan for this next question. What are you the most passionate about when it comes to helping people understand that we can truly achieve anything?
I believe that we all have within us an innate desire to see the world in new and powerful ways. We have been conditioned socially, we've been conditioned educationally, we've been conditioned professionally to follow the herd, if you will. We have been praised and recognized for thinking differently, but typically it's thinking differently within the prescribed boundaries that have been established at school, in our families when we were growing up, or in our professional lives or our social lives, just what any of those are. I am not in any way suggesting that those are wrong or incorrect. What I am suggesting is that we also have within us an innate need to do more, to be more, to allow ourselves to think bigger and broader. And so for me, what I really want people to see, what I'm really on a mission for, is to get people to recognize, number one, that they already have within them what they need to think differently. And number two, it's a good thing to think differently, because while we may need to support within the parameters of any experience that we have, and that's appropriate, every experience also needs us to support outside of those parameters. And we just have to be brave enough to step outside and do it.
Yes, thank you, Susan. I love it. I love it. I love it. Rochelle Marie, when you think about helping people with that idea of achieving anything, what do you get turned on by?
Oh, girl. Okay, so I'm super passionate about when people discover that which they're meant to do. And so I guess I want to backtrack a little bit. So, people think they're doing something and they do it well and they think that's what they're supposed to do. But when you open up their mind, when you open up the door for them to step into another realm of possibilities, and they begin to see that which they're doing is not really all that they're supposed to be doing. There's so much more that they're supposed to be doing. And that which they're doing is just part of what they're supposed to be doing. When you see them recognize and become aware of the fact that they're just doing part of what they're supposed to be doing, is not the whole picture, and they open that up, oh my God, again, it's like that orgasmic energy. Their whole being completely changes. And I love seeing that. I used to love seeing that with my patients when I would tell them something so simple when I was in clinical practice, and they would do it and they'd come back in the middle of my night shift and tell me, oh my God, what you showed me was, it's for me. Okay, let me calm down because I'm getting excited. But for me, it's the whole seeing someone awaken to, oh, I thought I was just supposed to say, drink water from this bottle, when in essence, I have the whole river behind my house that I can drink from anytime to be doing. It's amazing. And I love seeing that. And I love seeing people realize that they have an epiphany, and their epiphany is they've got so much more to do in life, and what they're doing is just a small part of the big picture for them. And as you can see, I get super excited and I'm really passionate about that, but that turns me on like an orgasmic energy, like an orgasm almost. It just turns me on because the beauty of it is God bestows this wisdom in me to share with others. And when they embrace it and receive it, then I just was a conduit for God's message to them. And that sends chills down my spine.
I love that so much. I love the idea of when people wake up to the fact that there's a river to drink from. There's the river, like it's not just a little cup. We've got, oh my gosh, yeah, or the fire hose, right? Like, so when you're ready, it's going to come. Courtney, what do you get really passionate about with this, helping people understand that we can achieve anything?
Well, first of all, I'm really digging this conversation. Seeing everybody get lit up about their passions, you can kind of tell. So I'm a coach. I'm a health and wellness coach, and I work in a clinic with people who are dealing with work-life balance. They're dealing with anxiety. It's a corporate setting, so they have all kinds of things that they come into coaching for. But one of the things I always lead with is your strengths, your positive strengths. And so when it's about achieving anything, I don't necessarily put any limitations on anything. I always guide people into the process of going to the strengths. Go to the well, go to your wheelhouse, go to your storehouse. However you want to talk about it, everybody has strengths. And so it's about moving out of negative spaces and seeing things negatively and seeing things from a strengths-based position. I think that's the roadmap to creating anything, regardless of it's a health and wellness challenge, or if it's a business challenge, or if it's a partnership thing, or you're looking for your soulmate. So my guidance is always stay in your strengths. And so I believe that strengths are wisdom. That's my perspective of it. We all have an inner wisdom. And if you listen to that inner wisdom and you follow it, you really do, life opens up and you see things that you didn't see before. And so my perspective on that is very concrete. Follow your gifts, follow your strengths. And usually people who do that, who are achieving and goal setting, find things along the way that they're good at, and they'll get flashes of information. They'll get answers to problems because you're setting your intention to listen in a deeper way. That's kind of how I interpret it. And that wisdom always comes through because it's you. It's not necessarily stepping outside of your wheelhouse. Now, some people do because they're visionary and what they envision hasn't been created yet in material reality. So they really have to work at the vision and create the steps to get there. But it happens. You just have to have the patience to get there. And so it takes time for the vision to come into reality. But that's where I, as a coach, thrive in seeing them get passionate, lit up. It might not happen yet, but it will. And it's trusting that, which is basically trust in yourself.
Yes, I hope, oh man, listeners, I hope you're feeling the vibe right now. And when I help these authors into what their passions are, they are living in that energy and infusing you with it at the same time. So hint, hint, that's where we want you to be. That is how you achieve anything. Okay, I have one more question for all of you today. So this is a biggie. I love this topic. And Rochelle, I'm coming to you first with this one, okay? So many of the authors, maybe all of them, have a component of mindset in their chapters. And Courtney actually touched on this already in what she just said about strengths. To me, mindset is a choice we get when we practice awareness. And the foundational practice is awareness. And you all are teaching awareness tools and mindset tools. So I'd love for you to touch on, share about one of the mindset ideas or practices that's helped you the most and that you might think will help our listeners too.
So many times we go through life and we see things we want. We strive to get those things. But a lot of times with regards to that, we forget about the concept of really appreciating what we have. Because if you don't appreciate what you have in your life right now, how can you possibly get to that other thing that you want to get to when you don't appreciate what you have already. Without appreciation, without gratitude, without just being in touch with the goodness that is being bestowed upon you, you cannot achieve anything else. Because as you get to, it's like the carrot on the string. The closer you get to it, it's being pulled away. And it's being pulled away from you because you're not appreciating what you have right now. It's like being, I'm gonna do nature. It's like seeing that baby hummingbird first fly out of the nest and see the little wings going, and appreciate the fact that that baby just took a leap of faith and started flying. That baby is appreciating the gift that their little wings can have them fly wherever they want to go. And so they will continue to fly until the end of their lifetime because they appreciate the gift that is bestowed upon them. Same thing happens with us. When we learn to appreciate what we have in our life, all that stuff that we want, all that stuff we dream of, all that stuff we try to attract with the law of attraction becomes possible. It goes from being impossible to possible. So I would say one of the biggest things that we need to have more of, not only in the United States, but in the world, is to be appreciative for what we have. Appreciate that I have this nice shirt to wear. Appreciate that I'm on this wonderful synchronistic conversation with you ladies. There's no mistakes, right? So I'm appreciating the fact that we are here together because we're some 4 badass chicks and we are meant to give this message today. I'm appreciating that. You know what I'm saying? Just appreciating the fact that when I open my eyes, I can open the window and I can see the different colors of green on that one tree, or the baby hummingbird flying, or the birds flying, or the smell of the skunk, or whatever it is. Just appreciating that, because the more appreciation you have for what you have in your life, the more you will get to appreciate as it comes into your life. So appreciation and having gratitude is a big, big thing for me when it comes to mindset.
Big time. Thank you so much. Foundational, really, next to the awareness in my book. All right, Courtney, it's going to be hard to follow that because I know everyone's going to want to talk about gratitude, but how would you take someone to the next level of that mindset after that foundational practice of gratitude?
So immediately I got the intuitive hit that I need to talk about growth mindset. So I wrote down growth mindset because I feel like gratitude is so important, but then you want to grow. And so we grow in different ways. So I'm going to follow the nature thread too. We all have the experience of seeing a plant or a tree or a flower, whatever it may be. It's planted, the seed is planted, it grows, and then it flowers into its full, vibrant existence. And I do believe we humans are the same in terms of growing within nature. And that growth period is so magnificent if you're paying attention to it. So I believe with a growth mindset, you can achieve anything because there's no limitations. We don't put any limits on it when we don't know where we're going. So leave an open mind of expectation of possibilities, but then also grow into your full human being self. And so that is another thing. Follow your true colors. That's the other part that I think I'm expressing on this podcast. I'm different from you. I'm different from everybody on this call, but we all have similarities. So there's a relatedness within humanity as well, to hear stories, to listen to who people are, and also offer your own wisdom. I want to share this story really briefly. I was in a plant apprenticeship in Alaska, and Grandma Rita came to talk to us. She's one of the 13 grandmothers, and she was just talking with us, almost like channeling one time, about a patient she had who called her from Boston. Now, she's in Alaska, and she's telling us this story, and she's just channeling it, and I'm listening, going, she's channeling this message for us. And she talked about children and how when we punish children, we throw them in their room and say, go to your room. And she looked straight at me and she said, let them go outside and be in nature, and then they won't be angry. And I went, and my mind kind of blew up because I knew she was channeling that message for me. And I'm channeling it now to you. Because if we could just look at our children and say, Don't go to your room. Go outside. That was something that was wisdom that she had that passed through me that I think I can offer here today on that nature wisdom. And she's one of the 13 grandmothers. So it's a powerful message about who we are, who we want to become, and how we can support growth in a new way.
Oh my gosh,
It's an old way. It's an
we're
old way, but it's a new way.
yes, we're gonna need to do a whole entire another podcast on parenting topics when it comes to like modeling, right? And teaching all of those amazing things to our children. Oh my goodness. Susan, last but not least today, talk to me a little bit about this mindset thing. How would you build on what the other two ladies have talked about?
The true definition to me of achievement is being the me that I'm supposed to be. And so, in order to be the me I am intended to be and do the work that is my work to do while I am here on the top side of the planet, I have to have the mindset that I am enough, that I have something of value to share, and that while I am always a work in progress, growing and learning and taking in experiences throughout my entire life, fundamentally, I am enough. And I have something of value to share. I have something of value to contribute. And my choice every day is to take my enoughness and model it for others so that they can see that for themselves. And I think that is a difficult mindset. It's one that it took me a long time to understand. And self-doubt is okay. None of us should ever ignore periods of self-doubt because self-doubt leads to growth. But at the end of the day, even in those moments of self-doubt, we are still enough. So having the mindset of I am enough makes a huge difference.
That is a perfect way to end today. Authors and amazing badass women, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a treat to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
I feel very blessed just to be here and hear the messages, the way it unfolded. Very beautiful. And I love the nature thread. It was unexpected, but I'm walking away with a lot of validation.
All right, you guys, you can tell, right, the power here in this Zoom room today. Well, it's times 25 in this new book. So please remember to join us on June 22nd at 10 a.m. Eastern on Anna Pereira's Circles of Inspiration page on Facebook, because we're going to be having our live stream book launch party. And all the 25 tools to achieve anything authors will be there to share their wisdom. And as usual, we're going to have some pretty amazing giveaways for our book purchasers that day. So you're going to want to join us for that. I have linked up all of these beautiful authors with their websites down in the show notes for you. So take a moment to go click and explore and take your journey to the next level with them. If something they said really turned you on today, inspired you, go see what they're up to. They are up to a lot of amazing things in this world. And of course, if you're joining and listening after June 22nd, well, that means this book is waiting for you on Amazon and you can head over there to grab your copy. So lastly, today, everybody, I want you to remember something. That fear of not good enough, it's boring. So it's not really about you anymore. What if the thing you're still a little afraid to share is exactly what someone needs to hear to change or even save their life? It's time to be brave. See you next time, everybody. Bye, ladies.